Mr. President, this week the Senate is having yet another debate on legislation to restrict health care for women. And I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk about what this debate is really all about. The old Republican slogan was a chicken in every pot. The new Republican slogan is, it's a Republican in every exam room. The Senate has done remarkably little legislating under the recent control of the other party. But somehow, some way, there always seems to be time to have an attack on women's health care. It's come up again and again, and it's always the same basic proposition on offer. Republican politicians trying to somehow squeeze themselves in between women and their physicians. My view is that the government ought to make sure that women can get health care from the doctors they trust, and that politicians ought to stay out of things. Roe versus Wade says that's supposed to be the law of the land when it comes to access to abortion. More than 4 decades of settled law says that these are choices to be made by women and their doctors, and the ideological agendas of politicians ought to have nothing to do with it. The legislation up for debate this week, based on yet another far-right cause, says the opposite. Among other problems, one of the proposals on offer this week would actually criminalize the practice of intensely personal health care. It would essentially say to doctors, just throw out your training, throw it away, discard your medical judgment, forget what's in the patient's best interest. Right-wing politicians are going to call the shots in the exam room. Doctors who provide necessary medical treatment, care that can be life-saving, could be thrown in jail if they run afoul of these new ideological government standards. Now, this isn't a debate just here in the Senate. There have been hundreds of bills brought forward in states across the country restricting women's health care, including safe and legal abortion. Among the people hit hardest by these proposals are the millions of women in this country who are every single day walking an economic tightrope. If they can't see the doctor they trust, if their local Planned Parenthood clinic is forced to shutter its doors because of these harsh new rules, they may not have anywhere else to turn to for vital health care. It's another way in which the far right and the Republican agenda supporting it goes back to the days when health care was really just for the healthy and the wealthy. Bottom line, this debate is fundamentally about whether the government gets to control women's bodies. It is a dangerous, in my view, unconstitutional proposition that just throws in the garbage can decades of settled law. But this Republican majority has proved that we can always find time here in the Senate to go after women's health care with ideological bills, regardless of what other health care challenges Americans are facing at home. I guarantee that across this country right now, there are persons lined up at pharmacy counters with every last penny they've got that know that they're about to get mugged when it comes to paying for the cost of prescription medicine. Millions of Americans struggle to pay for their medications, but the majority leader of this body has blocked our best efforts to give them a hand. Instead, the Senate is debating yet another ideological attack on women's health care that really has no chance of becoming law. The likelihood is these attacks, in my view, based on what we know, are going to keep coming. It'll only get more serious in the months ahead. 4 more years of Donald Trump would mean the end of Roe versus Wade. It would guarantee more health care discrimination against women, and it would mean a whole lot more government control over women's bodies, and again, we would see the government in the exam room. I urge my colleagues to reject these proposals when they come up, and I yield the floor.